education, health, sanitation, skilling, digital empowerment. How are you doing? So these are two different facets. It's not necessary that in a country, both the growth and development things are going together. So in the couple of slides which I would be showing, I like to bring out the factual details. Now, all of you as management students must remember that one of the things that you should keep in mind, that any statement that you make, should be backed by two things. One is data, which is facts, and logic. So never accept any statement, whatever may be the level of the person, unless he or she is able to back up with the data and logic. So with that in mind, let me take a plunge. So the first thing is that we look into basically 4 modules. Can you all hear me, friends? Can you all hear me? Please do participate.
Yes, sir.
You will find it extremely interesting. So before we come to growth and development, all of you must have some idea about how economic ideologies have evolved and how in India also, we have been caught in the quagmire, so to say, of economic ideology. In fact, no country is free from an economic ideology. So in the context of India, it is extremely important, because from 1947, when we became independent, till 1989, close to more than 4 decades, we chose the socialist model. And after 1991, we have chosen the market economy path. So we were Russians earlier, we have become Americans after 1991. I mean, to put it in the... so we'll see how this economic ideology has evolved. And as I mentioned, in 1991, we went for liberalization. We will also try to see how the market forces have impacted India's economic growth. The third module that I have for you, all of you today, is that I will try to bring out the meaning and how to measure economic development. And the last but not the least module would be, I'll bring out how in India there is a dissonance, there is a discrepancy, or there is a mismatch between economic growth and development. Is that okay to all of you? This is how we'll go about it. Okay. So whenever you make a presentation, be very structured, give very clearly what you have to express. That makes a lot of good impression. So let's now jump into economic ideology. The guy on the top, who is this guy? This guy with a wig. He's Adam Smith. Itisri, who is he? This guy?
Adam Smith.
Adam Smith. And as you know, Iti, he wrote the magnum opus. All of you take out your pen and paper. We'll make it interactive to the extent possible, so you'll enjoy it. So he wrote a book, Itisri. The name of that book was Wealth of Nations in 1776. He was a professor in Scotland, and he wrote this most wonderful book called The Wealth of Nations. Wealth of Nations. This was in 1776. And this book actually sowed the seeds of what we know as capitalism. Okay. So if somebody asks you that who is the prima donna, so to say, of capitalism, it is Adam Smith. So let's see what exactly he was trying to say. You might have been told about him, but let me very briefly capture his major contribution. Iti, can you just read it better? What have I this statement? the market forces, just read it out, better, so that you know the market forces. Yeah.
That the market forces as if by an invisible and will promote welfare of all.
Which essentially means Adam Smith believed that if there are buyers and sellers in a marketplace and there are no constraints, no regulations, no control over them, it is going to be win-win for both of them. Is it clear? That means the marketplace where buyers and sellers meet, if there is no artificial intervention by the state, no regulation by the state, then he very strongly believed that that would promote welfare of all, and it will also generate wealth. Please note down, it will generate wealth. So the gravamen of Adam Smith's book was wealth creation. How do you create more and more wealth? Is that clear, Sneha? Is that clear? Sneha, please show your come up. No problem. So essentially, the whole idea is for Adam Smith. Okay, for Adam Smith, we should have a very free environment. Are you getting my point, Bede? We should have a very free environment. The moment the market environment is free, it will maximize wealth. Sneha, can you read out the next sentence? Just read it out, Bede. Let's make it interactive. Yeah. It is not the benevolence. Just read it. Just read it out. Yeah. You are muted, Bede.
It is not from the benevolence of butcher, baker, or brewer we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own self-interest. Adam Smith, 1776, Capitalism.
Okay. So, no, what I'm trying to say is that this was the statement. It is not from the benevolence of butcher, baker, or a brewer. So, when we are having our dinner, we have the dinner rolls, we have the steak, we have the wine. So, let's not think that they are doing us a favor. Are you getting my point? So, we need them. They also need us. Are you getting my point? So he said in a marketplace, the market survives because there is self-interest. Are you following me, Sneha? The e-commerce platform is working. Your Amazon is working because you guys want books. Are you getting my point? So Amazon is not doing a great favor to you by sending books to you or your whatever things you require. So therefore, two things Adam Smith said. What are the two things? One is, please create conducive environment in the market so that there is no interference. Secondly, only when people are self-interested, then there will be wealth creation. Are you all getting me? Sneha, are you getting me, Tisri? So two drivers. One is free market. Second is self-interest. He also said a third thing, Sneha, please note down, the importance of specialization. Importance of specialization. He said in a country, it is important that if somebody is good at surgery, he or she should be a doctor. You know, unlike India, where we have linked occupation to caste, that it is only the Brahmins who would, be reading the scriptures, or it is the Bakayas who would be, cultivating. Adam Smith says that is completely wrong. People should specialize in their area of interest, in their area of expertise. Is it clear, Sneha? So the society's approach would be to encourage people for specialization, economic specialization. So three things. What are the three things? Market forces, self-interest, and third is specialization.
Importance of specialization.
So Alima, so therefore these three elements are what constitutes what we call in popular parlance capitalism. Is that clear? When you talk of capitalism, It means free market forces, self-interest, and specialization. Now, this particular was valid till Karl Marx, wrote his Das Kapital in 1867. Now, Marx's argument was that the then United Kingdom, Western Europe, they were doing extremely well, wealth-wise, because of Industrial Revolution. But he also found that it was an exploitative system. The capitalists were getting the lion's share of prosperity, whereas the workers were getting exploited. So his main contention was that if you have a system where only few are dominating the balance, then that system will not survive. Therefore, he wrote, what did he write, Aliva? Capitalism contains the seeds of its own destruction. Now, if you have a system which is exploitative, if you have a system where few capitalists are dominating the system, they're dominating the capital, then that system is going to capsize like a house of cards. Is that clear? So therefore, Marx stood for social justice. Please note down, social justice and equity. मोटे-मोटे चीज जो है ना, अलीवा, just मोटे-मोटे चीज जो है ना, you have a grasp. Capitalism, free market, wealth creation, self-interest. Communism means social justice, equity. So therefore, based on his philosophy, Russia went for a revolution in 1917. Please note now, 1917. And the old Jari system was abolished because in Russia, the workers were getting exploited by the business people, by the industrialists. Are you getting my point? So those people, those industrialists were overthrown, and in that place, Lenin became the chairman of the Communist Party. Okay, but what is more important for all of you to take note is that you have an alternative ideology which is not based on wealth creation, but promotion of socio-economic justice. Is that clear? Is that clear to all of you? So one model is looking at wealth creation. The other model is looking at socio-economic justice. Are you getting my point? Now, Nehru went to Russia, USSR in 1926. He had two models before him. One was the American model, the capitalist model, Aliva, and the other is the Russian model, which was based on centralized planning. Just keep a note, centralized planning. USSR went for centralized planning in 1928. And Nehru found that because of the centralized planning, there has been tremendous growth in Russia. I just want to share with both of you, all of you, that for the first time when I went to Russia, along with Dr. Kalam, Abdul Kalam, who's my boss. So we were staying in a hotel whose name was Ukraine. When today there is a fight between Russia and Ukraine, the best hotel of Moscow was Ukraine. Okay, it was a 60-storied hotel. And in the morning, when both of us were taking a morning walk, then Kalam found that on the banks of the Moskova River, there were 6 similar buildings. They were known as Seven Sisters. One was a university, one was a science center, one was a space center. Okay. So he asked somebody that how long did Stalin take to get this building constructed? Would you believe, Aliva, The story is that Stalin got it done in 2 years' time. Even today, the Americans didn't know how in 1924, okay, he could get 60-storied building, top class, absolutely top class buildings get made. So that is what impressed Nehru. So Nehru thought that if I can have growth with social justice, that is the way forward. Are you all getting me? Today, whenever there is a discussion about Nehru and people say he was a useless guy, he was a dynasty guy, all these things. Don't get into that. What you guys must know is the facts from history. Okay. And then we'll see with reference to the facts whether Nehru bashing is justified or not. Are you all getting me? So now let us see. So he adopted the Russian model. And for him, the most important thing was public sector banks, public sector undertakings. He said the public sector undertakings are the temples of modern India. He had a planning commission which will plan from the top. Are you getting my point? So what are the 3 things, 4, 5 things he did? Just note down, friends. One is planning commission. Just note down, Iti. Planning commission, which will plan from the top, like the Gauss plan. Planning from the top for everybody, for the states, for the districts, for the blocks, everything will be planned from top. Public sector undertakings should be the most important agents of economic change, because Nehru believed that the private sector would be profit oriented. Public sector undertakings will be welfare oriented. The other things, please keep a note, Aliva, is that it created administered prices. Please note on administered prices. What is administered prices? Now the price of cement will be decided by the government. Price of steel will be decided by the government. So instead of the market forces determining the prices, all of you know, supply and demand curve intersection, all you know. So instead of supply and demand intersection, the government was deciding the price. Bank rate, deposit rate, again would be determined by the Reserve Bank of India. The foreign exchange rates, again would be decided by the Reserve Bank of India. So with all this is what we call as license, permit, quota, Raj. The growth rate in India, please note down, was around 3.5% on an average. Between 1951 to 1990, the growth rate in India was very, very low. Now let us see, just take a close look at this picture. So now let us try to understand how has India done? How has India done after economic liberalization? Okay. So Aliva, one by one, just tell me what has happened to agriculture, bete? What has happened to the share?
Decrease in 1997. In 1977, it is 38%. Then in 2017, we found it as 17%.
So contribution of agriculture sector certainly has come down. Now, Ithesri, let us come to Ithesri. What is happening to industry, bete?
The industry has in 1977 26% and in 2017 26%.
Stagnant. Can we say industry has remained stagnant? Can you say that?
Yes, yes.
Industry has remained stagnant. Despite economic liberalization, industry has remained stagnant. What about services? What about services? Yeah, Aliva?
And services, there is a increase of
Significant.
significant.
So therefore, out of the 3 sectors that we have, agriculture has come down. Industry has remained stagnant. Services have done well. What about the GDP growth, which I have mentioned at the bottom? Iti, GDP growth has doubled. It has doubled. And what are the other things? Export and import as percent of GDP. What was it, Aliva? 12% earlier.
Yes.
And how much is it now, Sneha? Sneha, how much is it now? 41%. Please participate. You like it. Public sector investment, how much was it before economic liberalization? 9.8. Now it has come down to 7. What about private sector investment?
Now 11%.
Yes. So therefore, please note down that India has become an open economy because a lot of export and import are happening, isn't it? So India has become an open economy, and the economy now is private sector dominated. And very interestingly, we are no longer really dependent on monsoon. Okay, monsoon is not very critical. So from this, what do we make out? That after economic liberalization, please write down. After economic liberalization, please note down. After economic liberalization, the private sector investment has increased significantly, India is part of a globalized world. India is part of a globalized world. The service sector is dominant, while industry has remained stagnant, and the share of agriculture has significantly come down. Can you read it out, Itisri? Please read it out, beta. Any of you can read it out. Please read it out. Yeah. Just read it out. Please read it out.
After economic liberalization, private sector investment has increased significantly. India is part of a globalized world. The service sector is dominant while industry has remained stagnant, and the share of agriculture has significantly come down.
आपने देखा एक ही सेंटेंस में हमने पूरा निचोड़ लिए ना नहीं. Now we come to another very interesting. इसको जो है ना आप ध्यान से दो. Here we are trying to find out how inequality has behaved, income inequality between rich and the poor after economic liberalization. Now tell me, Aliba, in 1990, look at the graph. Bottom 50% people, that blue line, just see the blue line, bete. What are the share of this bottom 50 out of the total wealth of the country, income of the country? How much was it? About 20%. About 20%. 20-21%. Please note down, in 1990, the share of bottom 50% of India, Itisri, was how much? Was around 20%.
About 20%.
How much is it now in 2020? How much has it become in 2020? About 12. About 12%. Is that clear? That means the share of the bottom 50% of our population is about 130 crores. Out of this 1.3 billion people, 50% people who accounted for 22% of the total national wealth has come down to 12%. So the poor has become poorer. Can you say that, Aliba? Can you say that?
Yes, sir.
What about the top 10%, makhan bhale log, khare log, people who are taking makhan only? What has happened? How much was the share in 1990?
Around
What do they say?
55,
How much? About 22%.
20.
Sorry, about 32%. I'm sorry, about 32%. ये 30 है ना बेटे? 10, 20, 30 है ना? 30 के ऊपर है ना?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Top 10% people, please note down, Shreya was around 32%. What is their share now? Top 10%? Aliva, please pay attention. How much is it now?
58%.
58%. Shreya, it is 58%. So the rich top 10%, have they not become richer, Shreya?
Yes, sir.
From 32%, the share has now gone up to 58%. So the share has gone up to how much? 58%. So what is happening to income inequality? Has the gap gone up or not between the rich and the poor? The gap was only this much before 1990, just about 10%. The gap is now almost. So therefore, just note down that one of the fallouts, please note, one of the fallout of economic liberalization has been that the top 10% rich people have become richer and bottom 50% people have become poor. So when we look at economic liberalization, the story is a mixed one. Is that clear to all of you? The story is a mixed one. We have done very well in terms of overall growth. Service sector is doing well. Our exports and imports have done better. But when we talk of income inequality, it has also increased. Is that clear to all of you? Just give me 1 minute. এটা করে এটা উত্তরলে যাও এটা ডাইরেক্ট দিয়ে যাও তারপর মেসেজ দাও তারপর সাথে দেখে কি তার এটি ফেয়ার করবে মোর না মোর এটা তারপর বেটার করে Is it clear to all of you? How do find this is a chart from World Inequality Report. Just note down World Inequality Report. Now we come to the meaning of development. Okay, so from growth now we come to what is known as development. Now, the concept of development in economics was brought by the French economist Denis Goulet. Oh, dadi wala jo hai na? Dadi wala. So he is the guy in 1971. He said, why are you talking only about growth, GDP, and all these things? He said, what is important for human beings are three things. Self-sustenance. That means whether you have enough to eat, enough to clothe, enough accommodation. Then Atma Samman, self-esteem. And then freedom from want, ignorance, and squalor. He said, unless you have all this, the growth has no meaning. Growth has meaning only when every citizen is free from want, ignorance, squalor. And this impacted Professor Amartya Sen to develop what is known as the Human Development Index. Please note down. This concept of Denis Goulet in 1971, that human development is far, far more important than human growth. So Sen developed his concept called Human Development Index. But the person who actually worked on it and made a significant contribution was Maqbul Haq. Please note down, he was a Pakistani economist, brilliant economist. He was the chief economist in the World Bank. And he died in 1988. Very young he died. He was the first economist who said that we must remove all kinds of unfreedoms. Aliba, please note down. This new word was added to the lexicon. He said, what is an unfreedom? Unfreedom means undernourishment. You don't have adequate food, poor health. You do not have basic needs. You do not have basic civil rights. You suffer from economic insecurity. He said, when we talk of development, you must understand that are you free from all this? Are you free from hunger? Are you having basic needs? So therefore, please note down, from a growth approach, please write down, from a growth approach, the economists thought of the entitlement, capability, and freedom approach. What are the three things? Entitlement, capability development, and removal of unfreedoms. Is that clear, Aliba? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So instead of talking about GDP, saving, export, forex reserves, he said, now let us look at how we are improving people's entitlement. Like for instance, Right to Education Act. Please note down, Right to Education Act of 2009 gives entitlement to everyone, whether you are rich, poor, or middle class, to send your children to a public school from the age of 6 to 14. It's a fundamental right. So has your entitlement improved or not? Has a poor man's entitlement improved or not? Now, if you have the entitlement, then his or her capability will also increase. If he learns computer, if he is skilled, he'll get a good job. And all those unfreedoms like hunger, basic entitlement, basic requirements, all this would be sorted. So essentially, development occurs when economic progress. So therefore, it is not enough that you are economically progressing. We should also try to see whether we are providing everybody, rich and poor, the necessary wherewithal to improve their entitlement and capability. So therefore, just note down, so how do we measure development? How do we measure development? So the first tool, please note down, Shreya, the first tool is called Human Development Index. This was developed in 1990. It has three parameters. Life expectancy, mean years of schooling, and per capita income. Let us see. Just look at HDI. Shreya, please pay attention. Please pay attention. So now let us look at HDI. What is the score of Norway, Shreya?
.957
What does
HDA.
it mean? What does it mean? Out of a score of 1, they are scoring 0.9. That means score is 96. 96 mark Norway को मिला है. What is the life expectancy in Norway?
82.4.
And what about mean years of schooling?
12.9.
And what about GNI, per capita income?
66,494.
Look at your Mera Bharat Mahan Shreya Sarkar. India, what is the SDI score?
It's 64.5.
64 mark. What about life expectancy?
69.7.
And what about schooling, madam?
So it's 6.5.
बहुत बढ़िया स्कोर किए, बहुत बढ़िया स्कोर है, बहुत आउटस्टैंडिंग स्कोर है. एंड व्हाट इज द पर कैपिटा इनकम?
So 6,681.
तुम चलो एक भिखमंगा देश था कोरिया. गो टू कोरिया in 1950. Just note down, friends. 1950, India's per capita income was 440. और ये कोरियन की जो है ना पर कैपिटा इनकम वाज 390. प्लीज नोट डाउन. इन 1950 ये बंदों को 390 था, हमारा था 440. व्हाट इज दैट बंदास पर कैपिटा इनकम? बताओ, दिखाओ क्या है. अली भाई बताओ, हंस रहे थे तुम, बताओ इसके क्या पर कैपिटा इनकम है कोरिया का. ये चिंकी लोगों का 43,044. It's almost 7 times your per capita income. What is their score in mean years of schooling? बताओ अलीमा. 12.2.
Yes, 12.2.
And what about life expectancy?
It's 83.
83. कैसे हुआ ये? ऐसे ही हो गया, ऐसे ही हो गया सब. कोरिया के ऊपर भगवान बहुत खुश हो गए? नहीं. प्लीज नोट डाउन दिस. earmark 30% of their budget to education and health. They earmark 30 to 35% of their budget to education and health for 30 years. 1950 से 1980 तक इन्होंने almost 1/3 of their budget was spent on what? Quality education and health. And the results are there before you. हमने कितने खर्च किए? 10%. 10% खर्च किए. Are you all getting me? People like you and me who are fortunate had good education, good health care. But the large number of Indians, they had a very difficult time. Clear हो गया HDI? श्रेया, clear हो गया HDI ना नहीं?
Yes, sir.
Now we come to the gender gap report. Gender gap report. This is brought out by World Economic Forum. Please note down. SDI is brought out by UNDP, United Nations Development Program, UNDP. ये एक UN का body है. The gender gap report is brought out by the World Economic Foundation. There they try to find out, just note down, economic participation of women, opportunity, educational attainment, political empowerment, health and survival. So 4 things they try to see. One is what kind of economic participation and opportunity women are getting compared to men. What is their political empowerment? And what is the story about their health and survival? Particularly mothers, when they give birth to a child, what is their chances of survival? This is the World Gender Gap Report. Next report, Aliva, is Gender Inequality Index. Please note down, Gender Inequality Index of 2010, which looks at 3 parameters. One is reproductive health, which is called MMR, maternal mortality rate, MMR, maternal mortality rate. Political empowerment, and then labor market participation. What is the percentage of women who are participating in the labor market? We'll see the data now. The last Shreya is the multi-dimensional poverty index. I'll give a question on this, so that's what I'm the multi-dimensional poverty index. So in 2010, what the UNDP is telling us that instead of saying that 24% of Indians are poor, or garib hai, bada bekar garib hai, he said, no, don't look at garibi just like that, but look at specific elements. What are the specific elements? Aliba, can you read it out? Nutrition.
Nutrition, cooking fuel.
Cooking fuel. Are they having gas, or they are depending on firewood? Then
Sanitation.
Sanitation.
Then drinking water, housing, electricity, assets.
So therefore, the MDPI is looking at different elements of poverty in terms of access to fuel, what kind of houses they have, water availability. Now let us see the GI. अभी concentrate करो अलीबा, बताओ मुझे, आप बताइए नॉर्वे का क्या सिचुएशन है GI? What does it mean? 4.5%. On a scale of 1, please note on a scale of 1, gender inequality in Norway is only 4.5%. Aliva, are you seeing that?
Yes, sir.
What is the maternal mortality rate per lakh? Please write down MMR per lakh. MMR per lakh. 1 lakh mothers में कितने मदर की डेथ होती है ड्यूरिंग चाइल्ड बर्थ? व्हाट इज द फिगर इन नॉर्वे? व्हाट इज द फिगर इन नॉर्वे?
2 lakhs.
2 per lakh.
2 per lakhs. 2 per lakhs.
What about मेरा भारत महान अलीवा?
133 per lakhs.
You're very happy ना? You're very happy. 133 हमारे उनका है 2. You're very very happy. अलीवा is very very happy. बहुत खुश है. जापान में क्या सिचुएशन है? श्रेया, जापान के बताओ. जापान मैटरनल मोर्टेलिटी रेट क्या है?
5 per lakh.
बहुत अच्छा. आप देखिए चाइना, देखिए चाइना
29 per lakh.
इन लोगों का हमसे ज्यादा मोर्टेलिटी रेट था. दे हैड हायर मोर्टेलिटी रेट देन अस 30 years बैक. वो कहां चले गए? आप देख रहे हो ना? नहीं. नेक्स्ट चलो, शेयर ऑफ सीट्स इन पार्लियामेंट. बताओ श्रेया, क्या सिचुएशन है नॉर्वे में?
So 40.8.
भारत महान
13.5.
बहुत बढ़िया. या हाँ, ये नंबर तो है. नहीं, परसेंटेज की बता रहा हूं सर, परसेंटेज बता रहा हूं. 540 जो एमपी में जो है ना 13% है आपका वुमेन है. ओके. What about but you'll see that almost every country the share of seats of women is very very low. Even in Japan, just see Japan, 14.5. Even USA, it's not very high. Most China, it is quite high, in about 25%. So please note down that when it comes to representation of women in the highest body of lawmaking, whether it is the parliament or it is the Senate, you'll find that the share of women in the highest legislative decision-making process is very low. Is that clear? Is that clear or not? We come to the last parameter. I want, what's your name, sir? आप बता रहे थे अभी, वीडियो में निकल गए. आपका नाम बताइए सर जी.
भास्कर सर.
भास्कर, हाँ. Now, Bhaskar, please read out labor force participation. What is the situation in China labor force participation? Female participation for women as per men. और हमारा कितना है? Female participation Do you find a huge difference? Do you find a huge difference? Our general inequality index is as high as 45%, largely because our representation of women, our women's labor force participation, and their maternal death is very, very unsatisfactory. Do you all agree with Bhaskar? आप agree कर रहे हो नहीं agree कर रहे हो? क्या ऐसे ही रहना चाहिए? So this is what is reflective of our poor development. This is another very interesting data you like to see. When I say MMR is 133 or 130, it doesn't mean that every state has this situation. देखो असम में क्या situation है? Prakash, tell me. Very high. And what about Kerala?
It's only 46.
46. So the point which I'm trying to mention is that when we are talking of maternal mortality rate, it is not true that this is same for all the states. Whenever you read data, please try to find out whether there is an interstate variation, and you clearly see the interstate variation. Okay. Now, what is the situation in Gujarat? 91. So what they did when Mr. Narendra Modi was the chief minister, in Bhuj area, the maternal mortality rate was around 250, very high. So what he did, he had a public-private partnership, and he ensured that there is timely intervention when a woman is going for a childbirth. And in Bhuj area, it is now just about 25. Are you all getting me? So wherever there is a political will, there is a significant dent you are making in maternal mortality. Is that clear, Bhaskar? So essentially, it depends on what interventions you. We now come to, please note down, we now come to the Millennium Development Goals, which were promulgated in 1995. What are the first goal? Aliva, what are the first goal? Eradicate extreme poverty. Number 2, achieve universal primary education. Then promote gender equality and empowerment. Reduce child mortality. So, okay, improve maternal health. So I'll send this PPT to all of you, but you got to hang up the whole thing now. Now let us see how India has done. Prakash, can you just read it out, Bede? What is the situation? First is, one by one. First is proportion below poverty line. Just read it, Bede. Just read it out. What are the target? What are the target?
Target is 23.9.
And how much? 21.9. So therefore, we have almost achieved that, the MDG target. Is that clear? We have actually achieved the target of bringing down, please note down, from almost 45% below poverty line in 95, we have brought it down to almost 22% by 2015. Please note down, between 95 to 2015, 20 years, India has done significant reduction in people below poverty line. Is that clear from the data? But when we look at the other parameter, what is the proportion of people suffering from hunger and being underweight or stunted? What are the target? Prakash, what are the target? 21.8%. And we are still having 34% of our people who are suffering from malnutrition. Sorry. Actually, India has done reasonably well in terms of population control now. From almost 2.1%, you are right, this was a real matter of concern in the 70s. India has now able to reduce population from 2.1% to just about 1.5%. This is a significant reduction in population. Okay. Now, population can be a great strength for you if you are able to, there are many countries which are not able to do very well because of lack of population. But the point is that, are you able to feed them properly? Are you able to educate them properly? Are you able to provide healthcare to them properly? Are you able to skill them properly? So the Millennium Development Goals doesn't talk about population, but in India, we have been able to contain that problem quite remarkably well. So what about universal primary schooling? We're just trying to take note of what is happening to the development goals of Millennium Development Goals. Is that clear, Bete? Is that clear? So with reference to the Millennium Development Goals, what about universal primary schooling? It is quite all right. India has done reasonably well in terms of primary schooling. Okay, it's a fairly good record. What about gender parity? What about gender parity? That means there is no discrimination between boys and girls. So as against 100% parity, we are almost 92% parity. So please remember, all of you, that the Right to Education Act, which was introduced in 2009, has been very helpful in terms of access to education. Please write down. The Right to Education Act 2009 has been able to achieve high degree of access to education for all and gender equity at different levels of schooling. Now, Bhaskar, contrary to what people think, that the girls are being discriminated, that's not the story. That's not the India's growth story. In terms of education, there is very little discrimination between boys and girls, and also access to education. What about women empowerment, that is share of women in wage employment? There, of course, the share is very, very low, just about 20 as against 50. Okay. Infant mortality, as I mentioned, we have done well. Maternal mortality rate, we have not done well. HIV protection, we still haven't done well. So just write down one line so that we complete MDG. When we take stock of, just write down, friend, when we take stock of India's achievement with reference to the MDG targets, we find that India has done well in terms of universal access to schooling, ensuring gender parity, in education, and bringing down the percentage of people below the poverty line. Full stop. However, the unfinished agenda would include very high levels of infant and maternal mortality, very high level of people suffering from hunger, and poor participation of women in the labor workforce. Full stop. In terms of sustainment, we have not been able to contain denudation of forests, emission of carbon dioxide, okay. Can you just read it out, Shreya?
Yes.
Please read it out.
When we take stock of India's achievement with reference to the MDG targets, we find that India has done well in terms of universal access to schooling, ensuring gender parity in education, and bringing down the percentage of people below the poverty line. However, the unfinished agenda would include very high levels of infant and maternity mortality, very high level of people suffering from hunger, and poor participation of women in the labor workforce. In terms of sustainment, we have not been able to contain the denudation of forest, emission of carbon dioxide.
Okay. Now let us see both the picture. पूरी picture को एक जो है ना slide में let us see. On the left hand side, Aliba, I have put the growth numbers. On the right hand side, I have put the development numbers. Okay. See, as an economist, what I do, मुझे precisely देखना है कि क्या situation है. What is the GDP growth? Aliba, quickly बताओ. From 3.5%, we are 7%.
7%.
Savings, Prakash, savings, we have doubled. Export as a percent of GDP also we have doubled. Where we are really floundering, one is IMR, then MMR, then mean years of schooling, and malnutrition. So it's a mixed baggage, growth we are doing well, but on human development, particularly in terms of nutrition and containing this deaths and also schooling, we are not doing particularly well. I have just taken two models to explain how growth and development, just pay little attention, all of you. Now, I have taken two models. One is what is called as the Kerala model. Professor Amartya Sen, who is the Nobel Prize winner, so he is associated with the Kerala development. Now, Kerala is famous for its high quality education and healthcare. On the other hand, you have the growth model, which is spearheaded by Jagdish Bhagwati. Please note down, another very outstanding economist of India. If the world knows two economists, or think very, very highly of two economists, one is Amartya Sen as a development economist, and Bhagwati as a growth economist. In fact, he is the #1 writer on trade theories. had the good fortune of being taught by both of them, in Delhi School of Economics. They will never see eye to eye. They will never have a cup of tea together. Okay. So they were arch enemies at that time. But both of them were absolutely fantastic teachers. Absolutely fantastic teachers. So Bhagwati believes in Adam Smith. Is it clear, Prakash? Adam Smith, Bhagwati says that if you have a market economy, you will grow very, very well. Whereas Amartya Sen believes that unless we invest very handsomely in education, in health and all, we are not going to have long-term growth. Now let us see. So let's go one by one. Let us see no poverty. What is the record of Kerala? So no poverty is only 17%. What is the percentage in this is 83 means people who are not having poverty. Okay. 83% people are having no poverty. What is the situation in Kerala? As in Gujarat?
66.
And all India is how much? 60%.
60.
Now let us come to health, good health. What is the situation in Kerala?
72, sir.
72.
And what about Gujarat? 82, 86. It's much better. See, whenever we are saying that Gujarati सबसे बढ़िया खराब जो compared to Kerala, it is bad. That's not true. Health, they are doing much better. Beg your pardon? They're investing far more in the health sector. The government is spending far more in the health sector. Quality education, look at quality education, is very, very high in case of Kerala, whereas it is still quite low in case of Gujarat. Gender equality, 63% in Kerala and 52% in Kerala. Now let us come to another parameter called industry and infrastructure. Avi, just kindly can you read it in industry and infrastructure? What is the score
Yes,
of
sir.
Kerala? What is the score of
It's 60, sir.
60? What is the score of Kerala? Sorry,
60, sir.
60. And what about Gujarat?
It's 72, sir.
So they have done far better. They have done
Yes,
far better in infrastructure. What about economic growth? What is the score of Kerala?
It's 60 again, sir.
And what is the score of Gujarat? 64. So can I say,
64,
just write
sir.
down one line. Can I say, just write down a comparison of the Kerala model of growth with the Gujarat model of growth would reveal that a market economy approach and pro-private sector environment has helped Gujarat to achieve better industry and infrastructure, economic growth, and healthcare. Full stop. However, in terms of reducing poverty, and hunger, Kerala has a better record. Full stop. Also, in terms of quality education and gender equality, the development model of Amartya Sen seem to have done better than the market economy growth model of Bhagavati. Avi, can you read it out better to Podben?
Yes, sir.
Podu.
Our very own Gujarat model of growth would reveal that a market economy approach and and property sector environment has helped Gujarat to achieve better industry and infrastructure, economic growth, healthcare. However,
Tell me, I said pro-private sector. Pro-private sector. Pro-private sector and okay.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. However, in terms of reducing poverty, hunger, Kerala has a better record. Also in terms of equality, education, the development model of Amartya Sen seem to have done better than the market economic growth of I missed the last name, sir.
Bhagavati. Jagdish Bhagavati. His name is Jagdish Bhagavati. Jagdish Bhagavati. A very proud.
Okay,
he
sir.
is the economic guru of Narendra Modi. मोदी साहब का वो गुरु है. मोदी साहब अगर किसी को चरण छूते हैं वो भगवती साहब है.
Okay,
तो हमारे टीचर थे. वो हमारे टीचर थे. So we go to the last slide. Let's not. We'll go to the last slide. So what is the way forward? Just take a snap, friends. Now for me, growth and development are like two wheels of a nation's chariot. Do you agree with me or not, Ravi, on this? Both growth and development must move together.
Yes, sir.
Must move together. I have also said invest handsomely to improve quality of primary education, healthcare, and sanitation. Because that will give me long-term growth. Presently, I'm spending only 5% of my GDP on education and health. I must at least double it. I must give priority over this. If I have a serious anger about any one politician, it is Chachaji, Nehruji. Nehru didn't do enough on education and health. I will never forgive him. He was Prime Minister, his daughter was Prime Minister. They did nothing to improve the quality of education and health. You know, social justice, skilling, digital empowerment, all these are required. And the final thought, please note down, friends, that today the world is realizing that government alone cannot do it. Avi, government alone cannot do it. We cannot keep on blaming the government. All of you, many of you want to have startups. So what is required is, just note down, society-led development. What is a society-led development? Where government, private sector, and the NGOs are partners. Avi, are you following me? So
yes,
the model of development which is going to be relevant is this model, where government is not the MyBap. Government should work with the private sector, with the NGOs and academics like me जो बकबक करते हैं, तो सबको लेके जो है ना, सबके साथ सबके विकास ऐसे करना है. सरकार नहीं कर पाएगा. सरकार जो है ना बातें करेगा, बातें बनाएगा. So it is only when we people pull together, the India that I see would be far better. Okay. So I end with this, friends, and we'll come to the questions. Okay, I'll just close this. Did it make some sense to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any
Sir,
questions?
Sir, sir, in order to reduce inequality, sir, is the tax is the only option, or is there any other option?
I think taxation is the most potent weapon. Is the most potent weapon. Obviously, it is the most potent weapon.
Sir, what are the other options apart from that? Okay, sir.
Yeah. The other thing would be skilling. Now, if you are imparting quality skilling to people, then those people will also earn better employment opportunities. So I personally feel more than income tax, what is required is whether quality education is available. I'll give an example to you. The guy who is with me, his son Anadi, who attends to me, his son this year has enrolled himself in the computer engineering computer engineering school. And not by Mehrbani. He has completed, he has got him. I given some money to help him now. 4 years down the line, Anadi's son will not be a peon. He'll be an engineer. Are you all getting me? So I very strongly feel good education, skilling is the best way to reduce income inequality. Tax, of course, is a way, but it can be act as a disincentive. Supposing you tax Ambani's at 80%, वो कहेगा इंडिया में क्यों इन्वेस्ट करेगा, वो जाके चाइना में इन्वेस्ट करेगा. The other day I was talking to Mr. Naik, Ashok Naik, L&T chairman. I used to know him very well. I was shocked to hear that 50% of his business is in China. So he told me, he said, Mr. Saab, यहाँ तो बड़े hassles हैं. I do all my components there, assemble them there and bring it to India. It is far more cheap. Tata's invest, Ratan Tata, I was in the JSHL, he was a member of the board. He told me 30% of his investment is abroad. So what is required is that unless we create a good enabling environment, why would the industry invest here? Are you getting my point? Now,
Yes,
if
sir.
the quality for teaching is as good as, say, Harvard or Yale, why should you guys go there? We will be as good as anybody. Whenever I teach all of you, I have a sense of pride that whatever is being taught in the best of business schools, I should be able to bring it to you. Are you getting my point? So
Yes, sir.
this is what is going to make you different. I am not saying just for the sake of it. I come from a very modest background. I came from a very modest college, but so the disparity between me as a village boy and the best of guy from a St. Stephen's College, I could reduce this. Only key was good education and good English and little hard work. So if you speak well, you may not be a Sasi Tharoor, but you'll be noticed. Dr. Kalam once told me, I used to always have, so whenever I used to speak English, I used to speak like a Odia, there was heavy accent. I was very, very conscious of it. So what he told me? He said, do you know what is my accent? He said, I also speak with a heavy Tamil accent. Okay. I am never ashamed of speaking in English. He said, what is important? He said 3 things: content, data, and logic. Nothing else. Just write down content, data, and logic. All that I presented to you is that. Aliva, do you agree with me or not? good content,
Yes, sir.
good data, good logic. ऐसे नहीं कि गोलीबाजी मार के जो है ना सर, नहीं केरला बहुत बढ़िया है, मोदी साहब कुछ ऐसी कुछ नहीं. When you see data, please remember one thing. When you see data from authentic sources. Data ऐसे नहीं कि कोई कहां से कोई बोल दिया, ऐसे नहीं. Data, how have they collected? So when you see the data and analyze them, then only you are able to arrive. Just a wonderful question he asked. Is it tax rate? I said, no, education. Education. Many children have done very, very well through good education. I've seen it myself. Any other thing? So anyway, thanks a ton, yes. Thanks a ton. So we'll meet again. Thank you for your patient hearing. And I always love teaching all of you, you know. I only wish you guys are here. Your friends are here. They feel very happy here. I see most of them in the evening, all in the ground. So, so have a good day and thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.